Welcome to the Top 10 Gardener with Master Gardener Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and top 10 advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your garden host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week, talking about the landscapes of Northern Arizona. We are at the peak, Mother's Day, for this central highlands, this central part of the state. This would be Sedona all the way over to Skull Valley, Prescott, Paulden, all the way down to Cordes Junction, Prescott Valley, Dewey, Humboldt, Mayer, of course, Prescott, this whole circle, Seligman's involved, Ash Fork. We're in the peak of our planting season. So we're getting the likelihood of a last frost is kind of really starting to shrink and disappear. If it does freeze, it will be a flash frost, and that's just gone. And then it's for a couple of minutes, then it's gone. And so I think we are in the thick of planting season, at least at the garden center. We're loaded for bear. We're ready for it. So lots of vegetables, every kind of. Did you know there's two kinds of tarragon? We've got Mexican tarragon and French tarragon. You get all the selection coming out. And so it's peak season. I think you're okay to plant. I mean, just always keep a sheet ready. So if you do see a frost, you definitely want to just throw anything breathable over top of it. That will protect it. So it holds us the warmth of the earth, the garden, underneath that blanket. And then it keeps the frost, it floats it on top of the plant. And so you don't want to use plastic. Plastic is terrible. So plastic actually holds cold in and keeps it there. So it does more damage than good. Breathable materials like burlap. A frost cloth, of course, is a great one. Sheets, a box is great. I had someone last year, they threw their garden hats. I had someone put garden gloves. They put a bamboo stake through the gloves over their tiny little seedlings because they had a real quick flash frost out there. And so get creative, but breathable is the secret. I think you're good to go. Just always kind of watch the weather. I think you'll be okay. We are starting to see a lot of the flowers going in right now. So the veggies have been going in. That's number one department. Actually, the way it works, shrubs are number one because the lilacs are blooming. Butterfly bush came in and they are gorgeous right now. The crepe myrtles came in. So folks have been wanting these flowering shrubs. That's number one. Number two department are the veggies, vegetables and herbs. We kind of lump that into the same. So tomatoes, peppers, squash, eggplants, and then also the rosemary, lavender, tarragon, oregano, dill, all these types of mainly culinary herbs are number two department. Number three, flowers. Then it'd be trees, pottery, killing bugs. The thrip are as bad as I've ever seen them this year. I'll touch on that. I got to touch on that because they're starting to bother me. They're biting me sometimes. So we'll cover some of these things for you. But that's this show in a nutshell. One theme that I've found with customers this week, at least here in Prescott at Waters Gardens, and one thing that I've noticed is we've got a lot of raised beds and even more containers or pots. So if you've got an older container and some soil in there from last year, or you've got a raised bed and you're adding new flowers, new vegetables, new herbs, whatever. Let me take a sip here to kind of clear my throat. That's good. I got an espresso machine that makes the best coffee. Oh my gosh, it is so good. Anyway, I digress. If you are going to plant or add to your containers or raised beds, make sure you're freshening the soil up. Gardening is so easy if you get the soil right. If you get the soil wrong, you will struggle. You think you have black thumbs. It's just so hard. You get the soil right, you're going, I'm a gardener. It's so easy. Oh my gosh. I throw my hat in the soil. It starts to grow because the soil is perfect. You get the soil right. And gardening is easy. If you guesstimate the soil, you take shortcuts on the soil, you're just not sure about your soil, you're not going to do as well. Your tomatoes will be less. They'll be smaller. Your flowers won't have as many buds. They won't bloom as long. You won't have as many butterflies. The sunsets will not be as bright and crisp as if your soil is just right. And so the soil, if you've got great big pots, and I've got some massive pots, containers. I've had a couple back surgeries. It's hard for me to bend over anymore. I just don't want to get on my hands and knees. I want to be up here, sitting on the edge of the raised bed, up sitting on my chair, doing my raised beds or containers. And so I have a lot of containers that way. And the soil in my backyard is awful. I mean, I guess I'm overlooking the dells. The vistas are spectacular, but boy, is that ground hard. North slope, so it stays wet. It's gooey, it's thick, it's clay. It's the hardest gardening I've ever done is this house, and I've gardened all over. I've farmed all over the county. This is the hardest, but I figured it out. Abandon the soil. Go for bringing all your new stuff. Just raise beds. I've got retaining block I got from Yavapai block downhill, and then I backfill behind those retaining blocks, and now I've got beautiful soil. And on the patios, I just have big pots, big container, trees, roses, rosemary, hydrangeas are in containers because it's so easy, so pretty. They're like pieces of art sitting there on my patio. If you're going to plant in these containers and you need to add new plants in there. So let's say if you do an annual garden, or you're going to put new vegetables. If you're doing that, make sure you're adding some fresh soil to that container garden every year. So what I try to do is I'll see where last year's tomato was growing, or last year's zinnias, or last year's geraniums, whatever was in there last year. I'm trying to dig that out aggressively, all the roots out. I've got my garden tub right there, and I try to get that out of there. I'm not just getting the roots out. I'm getting the roots and all the soil around those roots out of there. And what I'm trying to do is make room for additional potting soil. So there's basically 3 types of soil you're going to find at a garden center. I don't care if it's a box store or a garden center like Waters. There's basically mulch or compost. It's a composted wood material. You've got topsoil, which is basically compost with some sand to add some weight so it doesn't blow away. Now, I guess you've got manure. Okay, you've got that, not really a soil. Then you've got potting soil. So those 3 main soils are mulch, topsoil, and then potting soil. Potting soil is our grower's mix. It's what our plants are started in. If you can give a plant, let's say you're buying you're buying a new Calipricoa or Million Bells Petunia or a new Sunbelievable sunflower. You're buying one of these. If you can give that plant, put it in your pot and give it more of what it knows automatically, it just thrives. You can't go wrong. It's just so easy because they don't like to change soils. Plants don't adapt well. They like sameness. So I'm trying to add pockets. Now, a lot of my containers have perennials anchoring that container, or my raised beds have a rose bush, but I want to skirt it with zinnias or alyssum, Million Bells petunias, those wave petunias that just spread out and so beautiful. It's a great design. And so I'm trying to take some of that soil out so I can add some fresh potting soil. If you do that, your success will quadruple. I mean, it's just so easy as long as you're watering. So we got the water factor, but if you get the soil right, that's the number 1 thing. The number 2 thing is water, but they make tools for this. Just get a water meter. The easiest thing ever. If you're new to gardening, new to the area, let's say you're from the South, where it's more humid. You're from the Northwest, where it rains a lot more. Well, you're going to adapt. You're going to have to water more here because it's dry and arid. You can feel it in your skin right now. You can feel the dryness in the air. Your plants feel that too. Well, a moisture meter, a $10 tool can stick it in there and goes, no, looks like it's dry. It helps you monitor how long it takes for your gardens to dry out. Or what I do is I frequently plant. I got a feel for how to water my plants. I'm doing this for decades, and I know my gardens now because we've been in this house for quite a while. So, but sometimes this transition, spring is a hard time. We're going from cool nights to warm nights. You're going to be watering more now all of a sudden. So I'm adjusting my clocks and getting things ready. When that happens, I'm watching the canary in the coal mine. I like watching my pansies. They're real crybabies. They're just whiny crybabies. They get dry, they get cold, they lay down. They just go, oh, I'm so dry. Oh my gosh, the sun. They let you know when their lettuce will do that to you. Tomatoes can do that. As they get bigger, they start to wilt at the end of the day going, oh, okay, looks like I need to water a little bit more in the morning to get them through. So you're watering. Probably right now I've got things set for every 3 days, my containers, every 4 days, in my raised beds. I might bump that up as we get into the 80s. Then as we get in the 90s, it's every day. I want them to make sure they're happy and healthy and growing like crazy. We got a lot in store for you, but Lisa Waters Lain is coming in with your garden questions right after this. Waters Garden companion plants in May are Indian hawthorn, purple robe locust, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and vining akebia.
Akebia is a super vigorous vine with dangling fragrant flowers.
She proliferates up arbors, pergolas, fences, and stunning as a ground cover to retain hills.
One of the fastest growing evergreen vines you can plant in the gardens.
You'll only find the hardiest vines at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join his daily podcast for timely garden advice seasonally right for the gardens. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott or through his website at top10gardener.com. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain and the Top 10 Gardener podcast. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lain in the studio. She comes each week, stumbling already with
Easy
your
for you
garden questions. Just what are neighbors talking about? What are other gardeners that we can learn from? What are the questions and how have we helped them to be better gardeners? So welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, it is good to be here. It's kind of nice to take a little break for a second.
Yeah.
So I think on Tuesday we had like 7 semis stacked up down the high. We kind of like, oh my gosh, they weren't all full trucks. It just kind of lots of little loads.
Lots of little
things
loads.
going.
Makes a lot of
exciting.
plants. You betcha.
It does have a lot of plants. So someone came in and said, whoa, you couldn't put another flower in here. So everything you see is going to be gone by the weekend. We'll have to restock. So
right.
We move a lot of plants this time of year.
We do.
So what kind of
Definitely.
garden questions we got?
So our first question is from Pam, and this is showing up a lot right now. She says, I have a clear, sticky substance, I can't talk either, on my roses. Is that from aphids? And what is the best treatment?
Yeah, clear, sticky. It can be on more than just roses. It could be on pine trees. I've seen it on apple trees. Sometimes
peaches, pears.
Peaches. They love fruit trees. Some pine trees are a natural, but different kind of aphid, but it's still an aphid. They're related. They're cousins. So yeah, it's called excrement or honeydew is the kind way to say aphid poop is out there spewing, giving that glossy thing. They have a piercing mouth part. They suck the sap out of the new growth of your roses or rose buds, and then they poop out the sap as they digest it, and it leaves this residue. It has a shiny, looks almost wet, where it spills down. The rocks underneath your trees can look like, wow, did the sprinkler system go off? What's happening? Why is it can spot your car. If it's a big ponderosa pine or something. So if you see spots on your windshield or your hood, that's from aphids up in the trees. You should get rid of them. And so what to do? So the internet or organic gardeners say, hose them off. I will never give you that advice because you'll be hosing them off every day for until summer. If you're going to take the time to hose them, add a bug killer. And so this time of year, I would say the easiest thing right now, the safest, least expensive, least offensive, safest for you, the pets, the dogs, is horticultural oil. Oils are a heavier oil than neem oil. Neem oil is what we use in the summer. Right now, it's cool enough at night where you could actually put on a heavier oil to coat their body and just obliterate them and their eggs. Did you know that aphids are the only bug that give live birth? And they lay eggs. It's like they go from one aphid to they're hundreds in like a week. And that's why they're populating like crazy.
They're asexual
multiplying.
too.
They're asexual. Don't need a boy and a girl. I got this covered myself. And so they just keep replicating.
Mm-hmm.
What other tidbits?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
They do change color depending on what they're
That's
eating.
true.
So they can be red and green and black and they change. Generally, they'll be green. So they take on the same. So for Pam, her roses, they're eating the rose. So that stem So they'll be that color because that's what they're eating. They take on whatever color that they're eating. So spray them with horticulture oil. I would say sayonara could work. Kind of anything kills an aphid because you got a soft body. Or if you really want to have fun, get a bucket of ladybugs. And here's how you release them. So you take a bucket. So we've got a bucket of 500 ladybugs. And so you take them home that night. You keep them kind of refrigerated. So you want them to be slow. You want to slow down their metabolism. And then at night, you hose down where the aphids are, hose down that rose bush, whatever. And then you release them at night because they're not nocturnal. They only fly around during the day. So you release them at night at the base of the plant. And they're going to go, as they warm up, they're going to go, oh, well, I can't fly right now, but I see this plant. I'm going to start crawling up this thing. And if they stumble across aphids, they're going to stay there until the food source is gone. And as soon as the food source is gone, your aphids are out of there and thrip. What they'll do is they'll go, okay, I'm still hungry. I'm going to take flight and fly to the next plant. Here's the beauty if you've got kids. Every ladybug that's ever spotted during this next season, you get credit for. Whether they flew in from like North Dakota or you get credit because you released ladybugs in your gardens. So you're going, oh, I remember that. That's pretty cool. That's great. So ladybugs are fun. So, and they are highly effective, but they're going to stay right there. They're going to solve your problem right there. And then they're going to move to the next, wherever the food source is. They're ferocious. I think a ladybug can eat 500 aphids.
I know it's a lot. But the other thing with the ladybug, so if they lay eggs, the larvae form of the ladybug is actually more voracious than the ladybug itself. Yeah. So it doesn't look like a ladybug. It looks like a little dragon, black and orange dragon. Yeah. But they actually eat more than the official ladybug.
So ladybugs. Release ladybugs. Pam, come in and get some ladybugs, or just spray it with some horticultural oil.
Whichever you choose.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question is from Mike. He wants to know, will Japanese honeysuckle work to stabilize a hillside, or is there any other suggestions you might have?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question, actually. So erosion control, hillsides, we live in the mountains. And so even a flat, say the valley, Chino Valley, when you see a monsoon rain hit that valley and you see a 4-inch wall of water coming at you going to the big Chino, it's an eye opener. You want to hold your soil down. And so grasses are nature's way in the valley areas of doing that, whether it's a pampas grass, is a big one, bear grass, which is a native, or just ground covery things, or ground cover cotoneasters. But honeysuckle is probably at the top of the list. So it's a good choice, Mike. I think that's great. So there's several types of honeysuckle. And so they make ground cover varieties, but all honeysuckles can either climb up a trellis or over an arbor, or you take that bamboo stake out, fan out the tendrils or the vines, and just pin it down and start having it grow in the direction that you want. And it will hold it solid. And so that's probably a good one. Another one that's sort of like that, the native-y one, it's called trumpet creeper when it's used as a ground cover. So it's got a great big red flower. It's called trumpet vine when it's grown up things. So if you're going up a rock wall or up a fence or up a pergola, up an arbor, it's called a trumpet vine. If it's as a ground cover, they call it trumpet creeper. Notorious for fast growth, big red flowers, and holding the soil down. It's another great choice. That's one, Mike. It's just a simple email. We can't go through. You got to come in and see us, and we'll walk you through and show you all the things that are. We have an entire section, knee-high and below shrub section, right next to the vine section. That's your people. You want to look at those because they're all good at holding down the earth, the ground, the gardens, keeping things in place. So Mike, come see us.
Okay. Come on in.
Come on in.
Next question is from Phil. I think we got time. He wants to know, can you top an arborvitae or will that damage it?
Yeah. Can you top arborvitae? So I would say we can also put in that. It's actually a good question. Who'd that come from?
Phil.
Sorry, Phil. So Phil, you can top arborvitae. You can top Deodar cedars, Colorado spruce. You top things with a central leader, and will it recover? The answer is no. It's not you'll lose its shape. So if it's just getting too big and it's up in the eaves, what choice do you have? It's probably above head high, so you wouldn't see the butchery as you top it. But is it going to regrow another leader going up? It'll take years. And so generally, those are not plants we hedge. We just let them grow and take their shape. They're easier to shape from the sides than they are at the top. But I understand if you've got to top this thing because it's banging up against the window. It's too close to some structure. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You just have to call it. I would say top it if you have to. If you don't have to, don't do it because it'll look bad. But if you have to, top it, settle with it, see if you can live with that. And you know what? I know a really great garden center can sell you a different plant that's probably better for that space that if you can't recover. So I would say best not to if you can, Phil, but if you have to, go for it and see how it looks when you get all done. That's all the questions we've got time for. So Ken and Lisa Lain will be right back after this. Waters Garden companion plants in May are Vining Akebia, Purple Robe Locust, Prescott Sunshine Geraniums, and Indian Hawthorn.
Wind is no problem for this Indian hawthorn.
Rose-colored flowers cover this spring bloomer that often repeat blooms in fall.
Dark blue berries adorn this compact bush that takes the wind and soaks up the sun like a native.
Perfect for low-maintenance gardens with virtually no pruning ever.
Every backyard should have at least one, and only found here at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So I was out doing some work in the gardens, and it was dusk. So it was just, I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago. And I'm going, wow, I'm by my aspen trees. And so I'm up against the house, underneath the gardens underneath. I'm going, duck on it. Something bit me on the back of my neck. What was that? I thought it was a spider or something on the leaves. Could feel the leaves, and then I felt this bite, pinch. Go, no, doggone it. You just start slapping at your neck. And then, I go, got him. Okay, we're all set. Keep working. Keep going. Don't worry about spiders. And then it bit me again. I'm going, what the heck is going on? What is this? I don't see any webbing. I don't see anything. What is this? And it ended up being no-see-ums were biting my skin, and they were ferocious. I was bumping up. They were on my aspen trees. They were eating the foliage on the bottom side of the leaves. So thrip, T-H-R-I-P, thrip, or also called no-see-ums, they have a scarifying mouthpart. That is, they scrape off the living tissue and they eat it, digest it by the thousands. The reason they call them no-see-ums is because you can't see them. The only way I could see them, and you could do this test yourself. You got a phone, especially a smartphone with a screen on it. Just take, or a white sheet of paper, take your screen with the power off, just black, tap some foliage on there, and if the dust is moving around, those are thrip, and they're eating that plant. Another indication I've seen probably a dozen different examples of thrip damage in flowers. So if you notice that your lilacs bloomed so much better last year than this year, it's because the thrip got inside the flowers and they ate the flower from the inside out. Roses this week. So the roses are heavily budded. They're about to pop open. They're about to be spectacular. It's about Mother's Day. They're right on time. But that first bud, sometimes the thrip can get inside that flower and they eat the flower from the inside out. The indication is it's forming a bud. It's been forming for 2 months, and all of a sudden it's about to open, and the outer petals are black. They look like frost damage or something happened. There's only one thing that will do that, and that is thrip damage or no-see-um damage. They get inside and scrape it. In fact, if you open up the flower bud and tap it on your screen, you'll see the dust jumping around or walking around on your screen. If you see that, kill them. They deserve to be, don't just hose them off, kill them off. So I went out and sprayed Sayonara. So there's a spray, a bug killer at the garden center. It's got a hose and spray. You just put your hose on the end of this, turn it on, and whoosh, spray the tree, spray the shrub, goes to the top of a tree. And magically, they're gone. And they'll stop biting you. They can actually leave little welts on your skin, especially in the evening. So they're ferocious. They're eating up. I think it's because they're daytime creatures. And so they're trying to bulk up before the evening. And so ladybugs can eat them, praying mantis some, but really this is a thrip and aphids. These are a springtime phenomena. As soon as we get to 90 degrees, they're gone. They do not like the heat. They only like the cool. So you only see these thrip in the spring. And so if we can get to June, when does it turn 90 here in the mountains of Arizona? It's sometime in June. By then it's all done. But then the grasshoppers and the blister beetles and other things come our way. But right now, the thrip are as bad as I see. I don't have any science to this, but I think the reason this happens, only because of experience. There's no science to back this up. I think thrip gets into the cotton fields, into the farmland down the desert. And when we get a big windstorm like we had last week, it lifts them up and just carries them up the hill and dumps them on top of the mountain gardens. So they'll come blowing right up Yarnell, right up into, the Bradshaws, into the peaks and Mingus, and they just dump it right into the valley areas. And all of a sudden we go from very few thrip to where did all these bugs come from? So kind of monitor that yourself. I mean, I've seen this for years going, okay, windstorm, I better watch for thrip. And it just to the season, it shows up every spring. Watch your gardens too. But if in doubt, spray it with Sayonara, or there's another spray. If you've got your own hose-in sprayer, or you like a tank sprayer, pump-up sprayer, I make one that's called in and out spray. It's the same stuff, only one's in a super concentrate. So if you need a season's worth, that's a great one. In and out insect spray. We've got at the garden center, or just come in and go, Ken said I've got thrip. I checked my phone. Help me. We'll show you what to do, because you and everyone else is coming in right now with thrip damage. And so we don't want that. They'll take your first flowers. That's another reason I use rose food with systemic on my roses early in spring, because the food will get my buds out, but then the systemic keeps the thrip out or the aphids off. And so it's a game changer. Otherwise, you're guaranteed of damaged flower buds, those first buds. But as soon as it turns 90 degrees, they're gone. Just like that bug disappears. And then it'll be caterpillar, something else will be out there. Okay, that's enough about bugs that can bite you and how to deal with them, but don't let them do that. Control them. Spray them with Sayonara and watch them say goodbye. Be right back after this. Water's garden companion plants in May are purple robe locust, viney achevia, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and easy elegant roses.
Just plant these roses in a sunny spot and enjoy.
We've married the beauty of long stem roses with the easy care of shrub roses for landscape color like no other plant in the backyard.
Choose fragrant reds, radiant pinks, corals, vivacious yellows, and stately whites.
Extremely fragrant and only found locally at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
The Top 10 Gardener, your source for timely garden advice, seasonally correct for the garden, guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back with Lisa Waters-Lain, and she has brought in a studio full of bloomers. Smells good in here. Welcome back,
It does.
Lisa.
Thank you.
You've been playing with the flowers, I see.
So it is definitely that time of year when almost Everything's in bloom that's going to bloom. So we have a stunning selection of annual flowers that are blooming. So one season now through a hard frost, October, November. But we also have a lot of great
Oh
perennials
yeah.
in that will give you a full season of color as well. I like to mix them so that I get some perennials that I know are going to come back, but I like to throw some other color in there that maybe you can't find in a perennial. So I'll throw some annual color in there. So I think it's fun to mix. And it's certainly easy to do in the ground or in containers, however you want to do it.
I did a tune-up on our drip irrigation, front
Hmm.
and back. So, and the container gardens are all self-watered. That is, we got a drip system that waters everything for us. And so it kind of had some broken heads. A valve wire had rusted off, or the nut just needed to be just tweaked, needs tuned up. You need to tune up your irrigation like you do a car. And so I went through it. So you are good to go, my
I
girlfriend.
know.
It's like
Yeah.
the irrigation is going. I might have them off, but you just open them right up and they'll start watering your
Hmm.
flowers like now. So have fun.
Now I just need time.
Yeah, well, okay. June is coming for garden center owners.
That's right.
It's almost past Mother's Day.
Yes.
We get time to. The peak is here.
Right.
The team is really coming along. They're starting to. They're enjoying. So we're teaching them how retail.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going, hey, that boss, this is great. This is fun. Oh my gosh. Yeah. How about this one? Let's put this together. Look, they look great. So they're enjoying the whole design thing with flowers.
Good. Good. So the first flower I brought in is actually an annual. So it's one season. This is a Sunbelievable sunflower. So we tried one of these last year in a container, and I don't think it was ever out of bloom.
It was crazy.
It literally just
Hundreds of
bloomed.
blooms.
Yeah. All season long. Great plant for containers. Great plant for sun spots where you've got that heat or that's full sun going. It's just an amazing little plant.
This is related to our native sunflowers, but it's sterile. So
Right.
it doesn't put a seed. It never focuses on seed. So you're not going to get sunflower seed. What that does is, as it gets done blooming, it goes, oops, I should try to seed again. So it puts another flower right after, just automatically self prunes, gets it going, and sets another flower just like that. But it's got the same sunflower head to it, same bright, like summer yellow with a splash of orange and a black center. And literally, this plant just came off the truck, and it has over a dozen flowers already.
Mm-hmm.
It got about knee high, about knee wide.
Yeah.
And as it gets
knee
bigger,
wide.
It just goes even more.
It does.
Flowers. I noticed full sun.
Yeah.
I think this year we're going to take one, and it needs more sun because we had the backyard where it got mostly sun.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'd do full on, like blistering hot.
Out in the front of the house. Yeah.
Fuller sun. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The garage or something, reflective wall. Who would like that? Sunflowers are great for here.
So a great one to try, especially if you think you have a black thumb and you can't make things bloom.
Can't go wrong with this.
This is excellent for that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sunflower. It's a good name too.
It is. It is. So this next one is a salvia, and everybody's going, another salvia.
We're so bulletproof.
But this is a new one out that we've gotten.
Look on the camera.
And the name of it is So Cool Pale Blue. So Cool Pale Blue. So it is. It's just a really nice, it's not the dark purple.
There we go.
It's just a really attractive color. It'd be really pretty with some yellow around it or some darker purple around it. Just very pretty. And because people ask, will the hummingbird still like it?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Like
they
candy.
don't care if it's red or blue or orange or whatever. So it's definitely a hummingbird attractor plant. Full sun. It's another one that just really animal resistant too. But it just blooms all season long. It's like they're never really out of bloom. So just a super easy one to grow.
So a shrub, I call it a herbaceous shrub, gets about knee high, maybe 3 feet if you're optimistic. And then it just has this nice mounding shape, very low care.
Mm-hmm.
And in the winter, next spring, you just give it a quick haircut, trim it back about halfway, fertilize it with small purpose plant food, and it does this again, just like that. Its most famous cousin, or the original, is red. So there's several red varieties. You've never seen a blue variety. This is So Cool Blue Salvia.
Yes.
That's the new name. So it's a brand new variety. You're only going to find this at your local garden center. Like, we're the only one that has this in the central area here.
Right.
It's just so unusual.
We actually had it special grown.
Yep.
So it's you won't find it everywhere.
This is where it pays to be watching the
blog,
video person, the podcast on Spotify or Apple, because they do the video piece. You can watch it and listen to it.
Mm-hmm. That is true. So the next one I brought in is a lantana. This is a new lantana. It's called Casablanca. It is also a perennial lantana. So they're coming up with some lantanas that will winter over in our area.
Truly amazing.
So they want a nice warm spot, especially in the wintertime. So it'll go dormant, but we want it in a radiant heat spot where it's getting some good heat around it in the wintertime. So this one gets about 18 inches tall. It's going to spread to 2 to 3 feet wide. So it'd be great for those perennial beds, great in containers, really nice kind of orangey, peachy yellow color to it.
Yeah.
So this is the newest edition. There's also Miss Huff and Marianne that are also perennial lantanas. But
We're
this
trying
is
to find
cool.
more varieties of lantana because they just love the heat. They're
do.
famous down in Phoenix.
Yeah.
There's so many varieties down there. Most of them are annuals. That is, they're going to die out in the winter. Up here, these do not. These actually will winter over for you. Many times they reset like a perennial. They'll rest underground. You prune them back. They come back with vigor next spring from the roots.
Right.
So lantanas are great. If you've got a brutal hot spot, you're up on that ridge line, wind and sun, lantana is your friend.
That's true. It is very animal resistant as well. It has kind of a rough sandpaper leaf and kind of an odor to it that animals don't care for. It's a great hummingbird and butterfly attractor as well.
I notice swallowtails
Oh,
love this plant. Just, you're going to have butterflies, but our state butterfly is not
the monarch.
It's not monarchs. It's the double-tailed swallowtail. That's what
double-tailed swallowtail
or whatever.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know. Next one is foxglove. Or digitalis. This one's huge. You can't get all of it in the picture. This is such a cool plant. It's not a new plant, but it's a really cool plant, especially for those shady areas, up under a porch, on a deck where it's just getting not much light, maybe some morning sun, afternoon sun, but boy, does it just bloom, these long lasting blooms that are just spectacular.
Is
it a lightsaber?
A real tall plant. Yeah, it's kind of like a flower lightsaber. It's so tall. It's probably standing 2-3 feet tall already with, I don't know, 50 flowers on it in this purple pink flower color. But hummingbirds love it. Digitalis or foxglove also is animal resistive. So your javelina, deer, rabbits, they're not going to bother this. It's got a smell and a taste that they just don't like. It's its natural defense to keep the animals off of it. So great plant for that shaded or covered patio in a container. Super long bloom cycle, and it's true perennial. It'll come back from the roots.
Yeah, so real pretty one to put out there right now, especially if you're doing a party or something, a graduation. Boy, you want something spectacular. That'd be it.
Put this in, surround it with like Million Bell or alyssum or what else? Probably some coral bells. There's some or heuchera.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, just be spectacular.
Definitely. So another really good plant for those sunny areas. So this is Veronica. A nice tall spiky plant.
That's a big plant. My goodness.
It's huge, isn't it? This one's the dark blue. It also comes in, I think, a pink color, maybe a light blue, or just at a time. Another great plant for those really hot sunny spots. Nice perennial, going to come back every year. It would also look terrific in a container.
Moody Blue Veronica. With that, we are out of time. Lisa, thank you for sharing. You got more to go. Come see all the perennials or summer beautiful flowers here at Waters Garden Center. With that, we'll be right back after this. Waters' companion plants in May are Vining Akebia, Indian Hawthorn, Prescott Sunshine Geraniums, and Purple Robe Locusts.
Incredible long clusters of purple flowers in May that look just like wisteria flowers hanging from this local bloomer.
The 8-inch fragrant flowers cover the tree profusely.
Super hardy and drought tolerant with a brisk growth rate of 2 feet in 1 year.
It's just the perfect backyard shade tree.
You'll find the shadiest trees here at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show with Ken Lain. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So we have stocked up for Mother's Day weekend. This is the peak flower weekend. You're seeing a transition in your gardens right now in that the spring, early spring things, the snapdragons, the flowering kale or ornamental kale, the dusty millers bolting to yellow flowers. You're seeing a lot of these early calendulas. Oh, you can't keep that thing deadheaded enough. Keep it blooming. And so they love the spring. They don't like the summer as much. And so they kind of struggle some more. So now you're transitioning and you're adding or sprinkling or actually replacing pansies and violas with summer things. So it's zinnias, a bulletproof, sun-loving, animal-proof, javelina, don't bother, zinnias. You're putting those things in now. Cosmos, geraniums, petunias, calibrachoa, alyssum, lobelia. You can go down the line. Shade plants or begonias, coleus, potato vine. There's a new potato vine. This is a sweet potato that has this really bright chartreuse, like bright colored foliage. It's quite striking. It can grow in the shade or the sun, either one. The reason it's so tough, because it's a sweet potato. It's kind of like a dahlia. Dahlias are very tough. They look delicate, but they've got this root structure that has very like carrots, the rhizomes that just bulk up and hold up the moisture. Well, potato vines, they got a potato that holds all that moisture. So it makes it very robust. Even the windiest of garden areas, a hanging basket, it can take that because it's got most of its water and food is stored inside the root structure. You don't see this, but it's got this delicate foliage coming out, but down at the roots, it's really bulky and just kind of chunky and hardy. And so new color. So they come in generally purples, kind of a copper color, and several of these light limey green colors, which are quite striking against some of these darker foliage. So begonias usually have this sparkling, like vibrant pinks and whites and reds with this dark, rich, waxy foliage. But a potato vine with a different kind of foliage, oh my gosh, it just screams, I'm a gardener. I know what I'm doing. Look at my designs. And they grow and they thrive. They just get more beautiful as the season progresses. So these are things, we're planting those things now. If you've got empty containers, this is when geraniums, you've got so many varieties. I probably have over a dozen varieties or colors of geraniums. It's probably the number one selling annual flowering plant for window boxes, hanging baskets, containers, because they're so easy and they come in different varieties. So you've got ivy geraniums, which have these long, the foliage looks like English ivy, only it has a flower, because spills over and runs, good trailing. Then you've got zonal, which is the most common. Zonal is these chubby, just nice little kind of rounded, sturdy geraniums that just stand up straight without any staking, just kind of hold their own. They bloom and they bloom and they bloom. And then the most interesting and unusual, we like geraniums. So we have Martha Washington geraniums. Yes, after our namesake, George and Martha Washington, this is her flower. And then we've expanded this beyond anything she could ever even imagine as far as colors. But if you want a bigger geranium, something that gets up knee high or so, covered, nice ball-shaped, thick, full with really interesting flower colors, typically striped. So you've got purple with white stripes, white with red stripes. You've got all these different, very unusual. And then the last one is scented geraniums. We've got quite a few, or citronella plant. There's another name it goes by, but really it's a geranium. It's scented like minty or citrusy. And if you hose that down, plant those around your entertainment area. Let's say you're going to be at a sunset on your back patios, your decks. Put it there in a container. Put it where your guest can walk by it and brush up against the foliage, and it will fill that entire space with this citrusy, very rich, kind of nice smell. And then it also keeps the bugs away, flies and mosquitoes. And so I like to plant it there. In fact, if I'm having guests, I'll grow them where they can rub up against them because they think, wow, your gardens always smell so amazing. I know. That's because I plant scented geraniums right there that you ran up against. You'll smell like that when you get home too, because it's got this real rich, oily scent to it. But then before everyone gets there, I'll hose down my foliage that evening, just maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes before everyone gets there. When that moisture, just at sunset, hits the foliage, it releases all this repelling scent around my patio. So it keeps the flies and mosquitoes away. I mean, one fly, ants, mosquitoes. I mean, the party's over. That's it. Everyone's going indoors and that's it. Well, you want to watch a sunset, drink another glass of tea with your friends. And so that's my little insider tip that I do. Marigolds can do that. Of course, lemongrass is famous for that. That's probably the one that gets written up most on the internet, but I find there's better choices. Like scented geraniums are much better, bigger, bolder at repelling insects. All your lavenders, rosemaries, all your herbs, thyme, oregano, these are all really good when the foliage is rubbed or moisture hits the foliage, it releases this herbal scent that insects, they just do not like. Also, animals typically don't like that either. So you're not going to have as many rabbits, pack rats, and deer and that kind of stuff. And so anyway, that's some insider tip. Right now, if you're coming in and need some help, give us the size of your pot. We'll go, oh yeah, here's some 3 things. Generally try to go by 5s, odd numbers, 3s, 5s, have a center thing in the middle that has this showy kind of, wow, that's pretty. And have things that spill over the edges, like your potato vine, like alyssum, like lobelia, like bacopa. These things that your containers should look so happy that they're spilling out with life. And they just happen to greet you every time you go out to watch a sunrise, watch the hummingbirds, enjoy the flowers from your salvias. So and when you're planting, if you really want a good design, you want it to look finished. So it's just like a mystery for folks. What the professionals do. So if we're planting for you, we will plant so that the foliage touches the foliage. We try to not root to root, but the foliage, you shouldn't see a whole bunch of empty dirt left in your raised bed of your garden. So you don't read the tag. Oh, space every 18 inches. Oh no, that's way out in commercial settings of how you do it. In your backyard, you want instantaneous gratification right now. And so we plant this 18-inch container so that the foliage touches the foliage. And so it fills out. It looks like you just planted it that morning, but it looks like it's been growing there in your backyard for 3 months. That's because you put 2 extra plants in and you got this joy out of it. If you're going to get 6 months out of it, get every single day you can out of your flowers. First frost is going to be in November sometime. Just go for it. Get full, big, delicious plants. Tomatoes. If you want success with tomatoes, get a big plant. Get a 1 gallon because you're 6 weeks ahead of planting by seed. And then you got to stub your trunk. It's more wind resistive. It'll take on the insects. It'll grow. It'll produce flowers that produce fruit faster. So bigger is better, especially when you're starting with annual flowers. So generally, I never recommend to customers 6 packs. These 6 cells, 6 flowers inside this little pack, because the roots are so tiny. What you're really buying with a plant are roots, not the flower, not the vegetable, not the tree, not the shrub. The bigger the root, the more success you have because you've got more fudge factor. The faster it will fill in and start growing quicker. It will set more flowers, set more fruit. And so for me, the minimum size I will grow, I won't even waste my time unless it's at least a 4-inch or even a gallon. My preferred is a gallon size. So it's like a one single plant inside this gallon size container. I like it because instantaneously start setting. I mean, you could start harvesting herbs now. It will set flowers like next week. You will start having peppers start to form, cucumbers start to grow, tomatoes start to activate. I like the gallon size. We sell even larger than that, especially patio tomatoes. Some folks are very impatient. I want it. Why doesn't this come with red tomatoes already on it? We're trying to figure that out. We just don't quite have it yet. So anyway, you're buying a root. The bigger the root, the easier it is to water and care and fertilize that thing. More in store for you, but take a quick break. Be right back. You can grow your own vitamins.
We can show you how to grow your own vegetables and herbs for a healthier you.
Water's plants are entirely organic, with plant genetics never altered and non-GMO.
Natural vitamins straight from the garden with naturally healthier herbs and vegetables.
Healthier plants for a healthier you, with plants from Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Shop Waters in store or online at watersgardencenter.com. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So my passion has always been and continues to be the reason I love getting up in the morning and going to work is I love plants. I love flowers. I love butterflies. I like worms. We have a coral snake someplace around the nursery. I'm going to catch that thing. It's the most beautiful snake you've ever seen. Take it home, release them in my backyard. It'll get rid of the rats and the mice. And it's just beautiful. It's wildlife. It's fresh air. There's a lot going on to it. So when I get really stressed out, I go out to the garden center and I help customers put plants together. Help them to design, help them get the right plant in the right space so they have success. And so we're not just selling plants here. This is how now you're part of it. You're at the staff meeting. We're not selling plants. We're selling projects. We're selling garden inspiration. We're selling beauty in the community. That's make sure they are successful. So when they go home, they're not going to struggle because that's like a curse, but they're going to succeed and go, wow, look how I am a gardener. And I feel good about myself and others. I've pet the dog better. The hummingbirds, the birds have a better song in the backyard simply because I was successful in the gardens. That's what we want. That's what we're selling. And so that's why I go in my backyards. I just go, wow, this is so nice. I lose track of time. I set the phone down and I stop looking at all the text and the messaging and I just play with my flowers. I get my hands dirty. Just makes me feel healthier, better, stronger. And so part of a small business owner is you don't just get to do what you love to do. That's how I get rid of stress. But I still the insurance agent is still trying to cancel my insurance because you had a claim last year. You just got to still go shop that and try to figure out how to have better workman's comp rates and just all these different things you're juggling as a business owner. But that's what I like. You never get bored. There's always something. There's another truckload of flowers or shrubs in the back, or roses just came in. Oh my gosh, the roses are stunning. It was like Christmas for rosarians. It was beautiful. And so you get to always put on these different kinds of hats. It's not pleasant when the toilet stops and you don't have time to call a plumber. You just got to take the 2 bolts off. You know how much it takes how much it cost a plumber to take a toilet off? $300 is what I got a bid for. You got to be kidding me. I could pull 2 bolts off and someone had flushed their sunglasses down the toilet, clogged it. It didn't flush, but quickly, it's a 45-minute fix, had it back and going. Yeah, I got a little wet. That's okay. Not with the fresh water side of things, but you're just always putting different hats on. That windstorm a week ago had some of my clips come off the new shade fabric with this beautiful, just striking, huge, massive shade structure. Just to take the edge off the plants, help my staff feel to work better, easier, longer, without wearing out. I won't have to water as often. Customers will just delight and just peruse the gardens underneath the shade fabric. It's beautiful. But the wind had taken a couple of it's got bungee cords basically holding it together. Hey, Mom, well, you got to go get a ladder, go put it back up. Get your evap coolers going because it's going to get warm here eventually. Merchandising. I love merchandising basically. I'm trying to teach my staff. I'm going, now listen, you're working here at Waters Garden Center. I'm going to make sure you are a great retailer by the time you leave. Now, if you don't stay with us or if you do, you're going to be great at this. And the same design ideas go for interior design, for graphic arts. I'm going to teach you how to be a merchandiser at a retail garden center. And so we're teaching them how to, it should be a piece of art. When you look at good merchandising, you don't even know why. It just feels good. You go, wow, that's beautiful. I want to take a piece home. That's good merchandising. So we're teaching that. So I think that's why no one would ever hire a small business owner. We're just so ADD, or we we get bored easy. So we change tasks. We just keep going back and forth. And so, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. It's not, you don't just get to make your spaghetti sauce, or you don't get to make your favorite, design, or you don't get to just sell plants. You got to do the other stuff too. But that's fun too. Anyway, that's it for this show. Throughout the week, Lisa and I love talking to fans of the show.
There's nothing like tomatoes picked fresh from your garden.
Waters Mountain Tomato Collection are varieties proven to produce and thrive. Heirlooms, beefsteaks, cherries, naturally grown for local success.
Completely organic, never genetically altered, and utterly delicious. They're ready for your garden now.
You can grow your own this spring, and we can help. Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Shop Waters in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com. If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.